Good afternoon, it's Wednesday and welcome to Saba's Way of Life. Today I'm going to talk about cancer, but as stated in a previous talk 2 days ago, it's not going to be anything about the disease that you've probably been told about, read about, completely different. I'm talking more about the psychological, philosophical causes of disease. In fact, all diseases, but cancer is a very different type of illness that, as you know, has really just been here in the blink of an eyelid when it comes to how long humanity's been on Earth. Never heard of it 100 years ago. So that's very telling. Now, before I talk about this particular book, which I'm going to read some extracts from and then explain them, I think it's quite important for me to share with you the full information on how this book came about. And I'm doing that at this point of the talk because I saw a video yesterday which was, I don't know how it came, I don't know how these algorithms work. Anyway, it appeared on my phone, and it was a talk by a 103-year-old woman who has just started to write books. She's 103, and I'm going to share that video in the notes below for you to watch. I'm trying not to digress too much, but in that video, I've listened to a few of her videos now. Part of what she said was talking about dreams, and she said dreams are very, very important, and it's important that you take lessons and remember them if you can. Now, some time ago, in one of the talks I gave here, I mentioned to you that I had a dream, and that I also said that I don't know enough about dreams, because I don't. I'm going to learn more now. I mean, I've always known that they're meaningful and mean something, but I just don't know enough. I don't know if you do, but I have dreams all the time. I don't remember most of them. Of late, when I say of late, over the last few years, I'm remembering them more and more. And some of them I also now write down. There was a period of about 6 months I was writing them down all the time. But I've stopped doing that now, and I might go back to it. So that's why I'm going to talk about what I'm saying now before I mention this book, because it's important. So I had this dream some time ago, and in that dream I'm just fast forwarding, you can go back to that video if you want to. Hopefully all of you listening already have, because you cannot listen to my talks and really gain the benefit and the context without starting from the beginning, because it's like a story and it will form part of a whole, which paradoxically is exactly what I'm going to talk about when I talk about cancer. It's so weird. So in that dream, I saw Aramaic, and when I woke up, I set about trying to find out what Aramaic meant, what the language was. I didn't know it was Aramaic then, and it was a bit of a journey, and that journey eventually led me to buying a book called The Prayers of the Cosmos by Neil Douglas Klotz, where the whole book is about his translation of Jesus's words in Aramaic, which is completely the polar opposite of what people are taught today in English. So I don't want to digress. Now, coming back to this book, in the dream, this was the book, The Healing Power of Illness, that I was flicking through when I saw the Aramaic at the back of the book. When I had woken up, I didn't link the dream with this book at all. I just thought, what was that language? What was the language? The fact that I was flicking through this book and it turned from English halfway through to Aramaic at the back, even though I was reading it the other way, right to left, I think. There's so many hidden meanings. But now I want to explain the importance that you grasp in your mind, and this is not just about what I'm saying about me. It's for you to pick up on these things in your own life and remember that nothing is just coincidence. Don't treat anything as, oh, it just happened. Especially when they come from a place of insight within you, especially with dreams. Now I'm beginning to realise that more and more as time goes on. You're very blessed if you have dreams of insight like this. And if you do, remember them and write them down and consider them. Even if you don't know what they mean, write them down, and over a period of time, you'll start to understand your dreams. They're very personal to you. They're different for all people, but they're very personal to you. And then you'll start, and this is years later that I've realised, oh my God, it's about cancer. Or this part of it could be about many things. So I saw this dream, and in that dream, it was this book I was flicking through, and the rear part of it was Aramaic. Now the rear part of this book is talking about cancer. This is the chapter 14, I think, out of 15 chapters or 16 chapters, something like that. The whole book is incredible. So I know that there is some meaning behind that, and that is why I'm sharing this with you today. Now, I'm going to start reading this, and it's quite fascinating because it's nothing like what you think. Now, let me read this. If we are to understand cancer, it is particularly important for us to think in analogical terms. I'm just going to stop there for a minute. Analogical means treating it as an analogy. So not taking it literally. Now, it was the prayers of the cosmos that I read by Klotz as a result of that dream in Aramaic, where in that book, and I've talked about it in a previous video, where Klotz says, Aramaic is such a rich language rooted in Earth, Mother Earth. It could never have been understood in just literal terms. It must be understood in metaphorical terms. And then the other word he used was universal terms, which is mystic. So it's all analogy, insights, metaphors, how it relates to your life today. Mystic, right? So now I'm going back to this book, right? If we are to understand cancer, it's important for us to think in analogical terms. We need to make ourselves fully alive to the fact that every whole entity, whole spelt W-H-O-L-E, that we perceive or define, on the one hand is part of a greater whole, and on the other hand is simultaneously composed of many lesser wholes. And then he gives an example, just so that I can give you the analogy. What he says is, if you walk through a wood, you're walking through a wood in the countryside, the wood itself is a whole. And the wood is part of a bigger whole, which is the countryside, in which there is a wood. But the wood itself is made up of trees. And those trees are part of the bigger whole, which is the wood. And the trees are made up of the crown and the trunks and the roots. Each is a separate whole, and the entire whole is a tree, right? So you understand what he is saying here, what I'm trying to explain. Now let's link this to humanity. Each of us is part of humanity, while ourselves consisting of organs that not only are parts of a human being, but at the same time are made up of a multiplicity of cells that in their turn are parts of the organ itself. So just to explain that in the way I perceive what he's saying, is that we are part of a bigger whole, and that bigger whole is humanity, all the humans living on this planet. But we ourselves can have organs within us, and so what he's saying is that we have organs within us, which are a whole, the organs, but those organs are made up of lots and lots of different cells, which then make up, in their turn, are parts of the organ itself. So even the tiny cell within us is part of a greater whole, which would be the organ, and that organ is a greater whole, which would be the human body that we are, the human, and us humans are part of a bigger whole, which is humanity. You've got to remember the message behind this is that we are not individual living on our own. We are part of everything. He's explaining this, and this is really relevant to cancer, which you'll find out as the days go on. Humanity expects each of us as individual human beings. Let me put an emphasis on the word humanity. Humanity expects each of us as individual human beings to do our best to behave in such a way as best serves the development and survival of humanity as a whole. Now, I'm going to digress just a little bit here and just say to you, is that actually what is happening in society today? I mean, this sounds alien in today's society. He's made a statement of, you could say, truth, where he's saying humanity expects each of us as individuals to behave, to do our best to behave in such a way that serves the development and survival of humanity. Well, no, it doesn't, does it? How many people do you know that live in that way, where every decision and choice they make is for the betterment of humanity? Whereas how many people do you know, and I'm talking about myself as well, some years back, not now. How many people do you know that make every choice in their life that is in their own self-interest? Pretty much everyone. Everyone. Why do you think that is? I'm just going to give you something to think about, because I'll be talking about that tomorrow or during the next cancer talk that I'll do, whenever that is, the next couple of days. So each of us in turn expects our organs to work in the best interests of our survival as human beings, and then the organ expects its own cells to fulfill their duty in respect of the organ's own survival. We know what he's talking about here is that if we understand humanity, we should be working as human beings in the interests of the entire humanity, just as the organs work together in the interest of the human being, or at least should be working in the interest of the human being. And everything that we do and every decision and choice we make, this is not part of the book now, you put it down, but every decision we make in life and choice we make comes from the quality of our mind and our thoughts. And depending on where our thoughts emanate from, which source, whether it's the mind behind the universe, which is God, that wiring to that divine source, or which is a dark satanic source, which is where the majority of people live from today, thanks to all the things I've talked about before, education, environment, upbringing, because, you know, I as a parent was completely linked to the satanic source and believed with every fibre of my being I was doing the right thing because that was my education and that was my upbringing. Now we've got technology, media, devices, you know, we had newspapers and radio before. all of those are from a satanic, so they've been used by Satan's source, not the right way. And we've completely lost contact with the real source that we have, which is our electrical wiring to the divine. And that is why a few pages on in this chapter is where the author says, if we and our bodies become cancerous, it is because we are cancerous ourselves. So what he means is our thinking and our minds are cancerous, which then manifests in cancer within the body. Now, I quickly want to, something just came to my mind about dreams that I want to talk to you about, is that in the Quran, which you all know I'm currently studying intently in English, in the Quran there's a chapter, and I'm still on chapter 2, by the way. I'm still translating chapter 2, but I still read a lot in other chapters and listen to talks and videos, so I can't remember which chapter it is. I think it's chapter 39, called The Throngs, because I remember when I read this verse I thought, oh my God. And in that chapter God says, I'm not quoting, okay, this is just from memory, God says that I take the souls of those people that die, or he chooses their death and their souls are taken. But he also takes the souls of those people, all of us that are sleeping. When we sleep, we essentially die, if you know what die means in the spiritual sense. And God takes our souls, but then he puts them back in for us to wake up, because we're here for a specified time that God, the mind behind the universe, has chosen upon before we were born. Remember, God is not a person. I just say he because it's the only way to explain, but it's the mind behind the universe, and we're part of that. We are part, it's not separate to us. We are also part of the whole. So it stands to reason, to me, that when God takes our souls during sleep, the mind behind the universe, God is talking to us. We're in conversation. And that, remember, from what I understand, is not literal in English, or it normally is in pictures, in analogies, in metaphors, in images. Dreams, that's what dreams are, images. That happens when we sleep. It's very important. And therefore, if we have the ability to remember them, and those people that have more chance of remembering them are those are generally in body that are healthier, and sound of mind, and are not anxious and critical and always thinking all the time, just generally in their everyday life, where the mind hasn't taken over who they are, where most of our understandings and knowledge comes from our insight within, not from external education. That's just a small part of it. But really, the true meaning comes from inside. So I would recommend that you work on remembering your dreams, and say a prayer at night. And I pray morning and at night and during the day, as I feel, not through any ritual or anyone telling me that's what I have to do, or through a book or all this nonsense. No, it just comes from my heart. Well, at night when you pray, ask God to help you remember your dreams. And it might help to put a notebook or a diary on the side where you just write it down. And you don't have to know what it means, but just write them down. Because, you know, I remember this dream. It was so vivid. I have lots of dreams. I don't remember all of them, but I remember a lot. But this one was so vivid, I can't forget. It was so vivid. It just so vivid. And now I know it was for a reason. Thanks to this wonderful lady. Who's read lots of books, but it was her words that really rang home to me. Okay, so I'll talk more about this chapter and cancer, but for now this background is very, very, very important. Don't forget to read the notes below afterwards, because it's an extension and addendum to an addendum to this talk and this video. And don't forget what I've always said, you must watch all the videos in totality for you to get the most benefit out of what I'm even saying today, because then you'll understand the context as you enter my mind. And remember, my mind isn't separate to your mind. We're all part of the whole. So the fact that you're watching this means that you've been drawn to it for some reason, especially if you've watched thus far. Okay, have a wonderful Wednesday.